Hey, what's going on, guys? Chris here from DIY E65 E66.com. In today's video we're going to be replacing the front wheel bearing, and this is going to be precisely the driver's side front wheel bearing hub. And on the E65 E66 the bearing is incorporated into the hub a little bit differently than older 3 Series, etc. And so it's going to be a one-part piece. And so first thing what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the one I purchased. But first thing what we're going to do is you want to make sure you have your wheel chocks, your wheel blockers underneath the back, so when you jack it up your car doesn't go backwards. And again, loosen your bolts as the tire is on the ground. Running real smooth and nice, guys. Definitely check out what my old bearing sounded like on my previous video I made of the wheel bearing going bad. It literally sounded like I had exhaust 0 through about 45, 47 miles an hour. After about 50 miles an hour, the sound went away. So anyway, guys, that's the bearing I'm going to be putting in. All right, let's take a little closer look at it here. We have the hub, again, which is one unit with the bearing. And we have, again, our bolt holes here, etc., in there. Alright guys, wheels off, and what we're going to do is we're going to come around the back of it here, and we need to take off the caliper, and then we need to take off the rotor after that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the caliper here, and behind the caliper are two 18mm bolts. One is right up top here, so here's a visual point here. You go just right over the top of the caliper. One's going to be sitting right there where my wrench is. And then we have one more, sorry it's a little bit dark. The next one is going to be right there, straight down the middle where my camera is shining. So here's my wrench right here. You're going to look straight down, there's the second 18mm. Take both those off and make sure you secure the caliper with something so it doesn't fall, and so none of those cords or anything like that get messed up. And a little trick of the trade that I like to do, I stick my 18mm on the top of that. And then what I do, if it's really, really hard on there, guys, I take a rubber mallet and make sure that that is securely on there and it's not going to strip it. And then I just go bam, 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 bam to the top of it. And that's going to get a little bit of bam, 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 bam. And that's going to be able to loosen that up because those bolts should be pretty tight on there. Now remember, you are going to be doing it according to lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So we're looking at the rotor right now. So what you want to do, I always turn around like this and say, okay, that's right, that's left, and so I have to go that way to loosen it. A little trick of the trade, guys. You guys probably already know that, but a little trick of the trade. All right, guys, now what we got going on here is we've removed the 2 bolts from the caliper. Again, 2 bolts right here. They have little washers attached to them there, so make sure that those stay attached. So we have 2 bolts there. All right, guys, so now what we're looking at here is we're looking at the caliper. And you need to go ahead and remove that. Now that should go ahead and slip off really easily. Now I'm going to go ahead and film this because this is a situation I've run into, and we're going to go ahead and fix it, and you guys might run into this as well. Normally it would just slip right off. Sometimes it's a little bit of friction, you just kind of wiggle it back and forth and it should slide right off. Again, put that on a paint can, bungee that so that it doesn't fall. My rotor here has a little bit of a lip right here. Now this rotor does need to be replaced, so there is a little bit of a lip right there, which is causing my pads to get stuck on it. And so what I'm going to do here is I've removed the little star nut attached to the rotor here. That is a T40, and it was pretty easy to get off right there. I just again took my T40 and my little socket and my little socket wrench, and I went ahead and removed that there. And the rotor did have a little bit of play. And so if yours is really stuck on there, mine came out pretty easily, but if yours is stuck on there, what you can do is there's 2 options. You can have someone jump in the car, push the brakes, then do it so the rotor doesn't move on you, or you can gently wedge something in one of these gaps of the actual rotor up top here, and then that will prevent it from going. Like you could put something here or down here, you know, or whatever. You could hold something in there while you're doing it with the other hand. Again, it's up to you. Mine came out very easily. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this little bolt here, and what we're going to do here is we're going to take my rubber mallet and we're going to smack it around a little bit. This rotor has never been taken off, I believe, so it's going to be a little bit worn on there. As you can see, a little bit of rust right here from just water and whatnot. So again, the caliper is still attached, and so I'm going to be careful. 2 hands, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap that, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. Alrighty guys, this little guy right here that was attached to the rotor, that is a T40. Again, T40 right there. And we have removed the rotor, and mine actually came out really easily. I just kind of put my foot underneath it like this to kind of coax it along. I didn't have to wham it at all or anything like that. It just literally slid right off. Now again, and now my problem is, guys, remember I had a little lip on my rotor here, so I've left the caliper attached, so it's free spinning, so you want to be careful of that. Now this is going to be very heavy because the rotor and the caliper is attached. I have all my cords still attached to it. You want to be very careful with that. I just set it on a paint can right here, pushed it over there in the corner. And again, this will be free spinning, so careful not to jam your hand in there or anything like that. But again, it's still attached. Just remove the two 18mm bolts, the little T40 that goes right in here. And now my rotor and caliper are out of the way on the paint can. And now we're looking at the hub and the little shroud here, little protective shroud type of thing. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this here just to kind of get a better look at everything. It's not necessary, but I don't want to keep peering around this long thing here. So we have 4 bolts here, 1, 2, 3 down here, and 4 right over there. And that's going to be a 10mm, guys. So again, 4 bolts, loosen that up. Let's pull that guy on off. Alrighty guys, 4 bolts off, little small guys here. There it is right there. Again, it's going to go back on like that. This is going to be the bottom, that's going to be the left, that's going to be the top there. So now we're looking at this right here, guys. Again, this is where the little bolts were here, here, and then down there, and then of course over there. And so we got this little protective kind of shroud thing out of the way here. Now we're looking at our control arms. Now this point here, guys, you have to determine if you need to replace your control arms, if you have that braking and your kind of car pulls left or right or uneven tire wear. You want to go ahead and replace your control arms while you're in this slot already, unless you just want to do it later. But this definitely saves time, so you might want to order your parts in bulk. And again, look in the description box. I part all my parts down there in the description box so you guys can pick them up there. But so again, remember that before you start one project, you might save time and just double up projects here. I actually have to do my control arms, and so I'm going to do a little bit more research on that. Unfortunately, I don't have the parts with me right now, but again, you have kind of 2 major ones. I believe this is the culprit here. The bushings go bad. Now, if you have a hydraulic press, if your friend at his workshop has a hydraulic press, you can buy the bushings and hydraulic press them in there without needing to purchase the whole entire arm. Unfortunately, I might have one buddy that has a hydraulic press, not exactly sure, but I'll probably myself will replace the whole entire arm. And again, you have another little one right down there where my finger is right there. You might be able to get a package deal on online. Okay, back to the project on hand, guys. So right now we're looking at our hub free spinning right here. And it doesn't really sound, to be honest with you, I'm not hearing any nitty gritty, but it's definitely loud when I'm driving there. Again, low one, about 0 through 45 miles an hour, up to 50 miles an hour, pretty loud, tell you the truth. But from like 30 to 40, it's not as loud. So like 0 to 30 is pretty loud, then it kind of dies down, then 40 to 50 really loud, and then it gets drowned out once I'm on the freeway. But again, really pain in the butt, so we got to replace this. So again, we got our full bolts right here that are holding the hub in. We have 1, 2, 3, and then we have this one right over there. That's 4. Now you get to them on the back side here, which I'll get the camera in there and show you guys, but unfortunately our strut is blocking this bolt right here. Now this is a big pain in the butt. I did a little bit of research and I found one guy saying that he actually was able to remove this bolt without removing the strut, but everyone else is like, that's impossible because the strut is literally blocking entry to the bolt. You can loosen it just a slightly, but you won't be able to take it off. These other bolts are real easy. You have access to the back here. Let me get the camera around the back there. All right, guys, hopefully you guys can see that. I can't tell where I'm filming there, but as you can see, the bolt right there, and then one down here, and then of course 2 on the other side. Again, these bolts are very easy to take off. Again, this is the culprit, top right. Again, top right, this guy right here. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to go ahead and drop down, according to the TIS report here from BMW that I've printed out here, we're going to go ahead and have to drop down our whole assembly here. So this is where what we have to do here, guys, is now we're looking at right behind this here, you're looking at a bolt right here. Now this bolt right here, and then right around the other side is another one blocking by this wire here. Now what we're going to do before we loosen up this bolt, which is a double-sided bolt, you can't really see it, we'll get to it in a second here. We're going to go ahead and remove this wire out of the way here. Now that wire is attached. It's attached right there, and it's hooked on by, I believe, a number 5 Allen wrench, or hex wrench, whatever it's called, just a regular Allen wrench, number 5, and you loosen it up right there where my finger is, and then it just slips right out, guys. And so what we're going to do is let's get a number 5 on that, let's pull that out, and then we'll unhook it from the back, get it off this thing, push it out of the way behind these wires here, so we have access to the strut bolt here. Alright guys, there it is, number 5 with a little Allen screw there. Now again, let's go ahead and pull it out here, so I show you guys what's going on here. Now again, it just slips right out. No issues. And just be careful if it doesn't slip right out. There we go, guys. So it's looking like that. And there's going to be a little empty hole there where that just slipped right on in right there. And you might want to clean that up of dirt and debris and make sure no dirt and debris gets in that hole. And then, alrighty, and we're just going to get it out of the way and put it on this side here. Now it still is attached here. There's a little bracket right here. And then right on the back side right there is your nut. You want to hold that while you're loosening it here. So you have one on this side. And as we come around again, we have one on this side right here. So let me get you the specs on these bolts. Alright guys, on this side is going to be 16. On this side, we're going to have 18 right there behind that little bracket. Hold one in place while you're cranking one. You might have to do it to the opposite to the other. But again, you're going to hold one, loosen it up, and then it's going to be a nice long bolt there. The little bracket here is removed, just pushed out of the way. Again, here's our little sensor. So we'll go ahead and put that up and above over there. Remember, be careful about these guys right here. You want to make sure that these cords are nice and loose here. You're not damaging potential brake fluid hoses or your brake pad sensor wire. Alright, now what we're going to do here, guys, is it's a little bit hard to tell here, but I have a purple Sharpie marker, and I have gone ahead and taken my marker, and I'll make a line right there on the strut so that I know exactly once this falls down and I remove the bearing, when I put it back on the strut, I know exactly where it is. Kind of an alignment here. Now I've also made a mark right here and right here, so if that does twist for some reason, I know that this purple marker needs to hit that purple marker and needs to go up to that line. As we can see here, I've done a lot, so let me talk you through it slowly here. Mark your lines, because this is where it comes in very, very strategically afterwards. And again, mark your line here so you know exactly where it is, and it's going to be a line there. No need to mark there. This doesn't go anywhere. But let's see what we first did. Now, as we can see here, the whole entire bearing hub assembly is completely down. Now you see a screwdriver right there. Now BMW does have a special tool, and it's called a separator right here, but went ahead and used the screwdriver method as well. It's called the separator to separate right here from the strut, which is able to slide it down. Now you're going to have your control arms that are in the way, right? Okay, so what you want to do is there's little nuts on the bottom of this one and on this one as well. I just went ahead and removed that as well, and then this one as well. Now once you remove this nut, this pushes up very freely, but it's going to knock into your strut here, so you actually want to drop the whole entire hub down off your strut here. So I went ahead and loosened this one up, and again, these are crush washers. You might want to get ahead and get some new ones of these ones here. These are big dogs. These, I believe, those are going to be 21 millimeter, but telling you the honest truth here is that I didn't have a 21 millimeter, so I used my impact socket, which is size 13/16. Again, I used my impact socket, fit on there just perfectly, 13/16 impact socket, and I went ahead and pulled that off. Some of those are going to be on very tight, so you might want to use a gun or your breaker bar, which I can't seem to find at the moment here. Excuse me for that. But again, I got a couple off with the breaker bar, but one of them was stuck on there pretty tight, so I had to use my my impact gun, and we got that free. Now again, this one here was the one that was tight. Now this one here, this control arm, this is kind of the upper strut control arm. This is also another control arm here. Okay, I wasn't able to slide it down completely without loosening up right behind here. You're gonna loosen up that. That is, I believe, an 18 millimeter. And let's see right there. Yep, that's an 18 millimeter. And that is gonna be on there really tight. So use your breaker bar and then get that free. And then hold it over here, 18 millimeter on this side as well while you're loosening that up. And then that will go ahead and drop down freely like this. Now you've loosened up the bolts from the bushing. Now the reason why I tell you to go ahead and align, now you can see this is clean here, this is dirty, but I aligned it right here, which means that this control arm needs to go up at suspension level, okay? Don't mess around anything over here, okay? You need full suspension on that control arm. That's going to be for a separate video. This one, we're going to go ahead and after we replace the bearing, we're going to push that up here. We're going to pop that in the bottom, and we're going to go ahead and tighten those here. I'll get to that a little bit later in the video. But again, once those bolts are loose, this one comes down. All these other ones just pop right out. And once this assembly is down far enough, once you drop that down far enough, then this can break free. Now let's go back real quickly here to the screwdriver. This screwdriver, it goes kind of thick to thin here, and I just went ahead and put it in the little crevice here after I pulled out the bolt. I got some WD-40. I shot it right in the crack line here, and then I took a rubber mallet and banged it from the bottom here like this, went bop, bop, bop like that, and shot the screwdriver up. That creates the separation here, and then once these are out of there, you can go ahead and drop it on down. Now, I wish I would have got that all on camera, guys, but again, I ran into some complications. Took me quite a while to figure it out because this one, the bolts were on there. Just wasn't dropping down. So finally got it out of here. Now you have access to all the bolts here. So let's go ahead and undo those bolts. Let's get that bearing assembly off of there. Let's pop the new one on. Let's put it all back together, guys. And guys, if you're working on the passenger front wheel bearing, this control arm will not be able to drop down unless you remove the little 10 millimeter bolt attached to this little itty bitty sway bar that's on the rear control arm. Again, this is the small control arm. This is the upper control arm. This would be the lower, smaller control arm here. And again, this is the passenger side. I did not see this on the driver side, but again, this is the passenger side now, and that little sway bar needs to be removed after you loosen those bolts back there so that can drop down and you can remove the hub here. And I am replacing both wheel bearings, so now I am on the right hand side. And so that was something I came across, just wanted to show you guys so you guys aren't confused. And real quickly, these ones are the same thing. Once you break the bolt free, then you need to go ahead and put in your T40 and go ahead and re-wrench those completely off until that bolt is free and ready to go. Same thing on this one. Stick your T40 in the top of it once that bolt is loose, and then this one as well on the bottom once the bolt is loose. Alright guys, now these are able to get off with hand tools, but they will be a pain. You could use your breaker bar, but again, you have to have someone hold the bearing. It's going to be swiveling on you. Again, I just use my impact gun. You know, I'm kind of just for a quick off. Now, a tip for you guys here, you're going to struggle with it. So I struggle with one bolt pretty bad. Okay, so they were sticking out of the back here. Spray each of those bolts that are sticking out the back, each one, before you take them off. Put WD-40 on each one of those bolts that are sticking out. Let it sit for about, you know, a minute, 2 minutes, and then take these bolts off. It's going to be a lot easier. I forgot to do it on one bolt. I did it on all three, then I remembered, but this one was pulling out. Took a long time. Even with my impact gun, this would not come out. Okay, I finally got it a little bit out, and that created a little bit of a hole right here in the wheel hub bearing. I sprayed WD-40 through there, but what officially did it, guys, is that if you have your bolts stuck right here, I used my heat gun right here. I put it on the high setting, cranked it on there about 1 inch away from that bolt right there. I sprayed it right this direction right here, about 60 seconds. That heated up any Loctite or anything like that on the bolt, and then I flipped it over after it was heated up, and then it was able to remove. But it takes a little bit of time. Those bolts are in there tight. Now remember, when we put the bolts back in, if you haven't ordered new bolts, you will be using Loctite on the bolts. I've already purchased my Loctite. It's all ready to go. And so once I put the new wheel bearing back in, I'm going to use Loctite and tighten those guys on up. To torque specifications, which I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll look at the TIS sheet and see if it says on there. Okay, once all 4 bolts are out, then guys, it just simply lifts off, straight off of the wheel bearing hub there. Now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and clean up all this right around the edges here so it fits down beautifully, nice and snug. So we're going to go ahead and get a rag and clean that up, remove all the oil and debris off of there. And then we're going to put the new one back on. Again, put Loctite on your bolts and slip your bolts back in. Be back with you in just a second. Alright guys, there we go there. I have a little bit of thread locker there. A little itty bitty bit. And then I just put it back on where it was. And then go ahead and just slip them on down in the holes here. And tighten them on up. Alright guys, so what I did here is I went ahead and just placed these joints in. And then I put some boards down on the ground there. As you can see, my screwdriver is out and it's sitting perfectly right on the line. That's why I made that line. You can tell again that it's going to be clean and then dirty. But what I literally did is I just held my foot underneath very gently and I just lifted it up until it hit the line, and then I pounded out the screwdriver with a hammer on the opposite end. Screwdriver fell down and then it was nice and tight right there. So now we're going to go ahead and tighten up all these bolts. Now, if you guys can, go ahead and replace those. These are all crushed bolts type thing. And so they do need to be replaced with new ones. I'm going to go ahead and wait until I put in new control arms, then I'll put in all new bolts. Just make sure you look up the specs. I don't have them off the top of my head, but really, really tight. You probably need your breaker bar for that. So again, we're going to put back in this one here. We're going to put back in the control arm one there, which is right here on the bottom. And remember, you do need to tighten up those, save those for last. These bolts right here and on the other side, because we are at suspension level because we didn't mess around with this one at all. And again, we aligned it perfectly. And so again, then we need to put in our bolt right here as well. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put all those back in. We're looking good, and we'll go ahead and piece this back together. Alright guys, now always go back over and examine your work. So we have this bolt right here, nice and tight down. Again, our line, perfect. This didn't move at all, so don't worry about that, but check that just in case. And it really didn't matter right here, but I have my purple line here matched up with my purple line here. That really didn't matter. All that really mattered was this line right here. Again, the last bolts we tightened were for the control arm over there. And all our bolts are nice and tight. This one here, this one on bottom right there, this one again. Always check your work, guys. Now what we're going to do is we've put in our bolt here that tightens up the gap we used for our screwdriver in the back here. And again, remember to put back your little bracket here for your wiring. And then we'll take our 5, put that back on in, slips back in, tighten that down. We're going to tighten down our bolt here, and we're going to use a little bit of thread locker on this one here because again, we did not buy new washers, but we will when we do the control arms. That will be another video for another project. Alrighty guys, now remember to put this back on here. Again, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bolts right there. That's a 10 millimeter. Put that guy back on nice and tight, and then we're going to go ahead and put the rotor and caliper back on. Again, 2 bolts for the caliper right there and there. And remember also on the rotor, you're going to have the little right there holding the rotor on right there in that slot right there. And then we're going to go ahead and put the wheel back on. Alrighty guys, our bolt in right here, again that's a T40 star for the rotor. We got our bolts in back. Just make sure that you double check on the tightness of the bolts right there. And once those are tightened, again 1, 2, 18 millimeter caliper is on, guys, you are good to go. You just saved a lot of money putting in your own front wheel bearing. Now again, for some oddball reason, if you didn't guess the right wheel correctly and you put it on the wrong one without knowing, well, the front and the left are the same exact front wheel bearing, so you could flip-flop it, or hey, now you have one in one side, then go ahead and do the other. Hopefully the video has helped you guys. Enjoy the quiet ride now. You're going to be smooth sailing. And eventually, guys, I'm going to be getting to the control arm video because, again, that symptom is when I'm slowing down at a fairly decent rate of speed. I feel the car kind of tug one side, and again, uneven tire wear as well. So hopefully this video has helped you guys. Again, double check all your work. set that tire back on, and enjoy the quiet ride, come on over and visit me at DIY E65 E66.com and look in that description box below for the tools. You guys have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.